Please state your true name.
Jerice.
What's your date of birth?
1373.
You were previously found guilty by the jury, and it is the judgment of the court that you are guilty of count 1, child abuse, a class 2 felony and dangerous crimes against children committed on or between September 23rd, 2011 and October 4th, 2011, as well as count 2, first-degree murder, a class 1 felony and dangerous crimes against children committed on or between September 23rd, 2011 and October 4th, 2011. All right. At this point, what I would like you to do is you may go back and sit down while we hear from anybody in the audience that are here. I do note that I have reviewed the pre-sentence report and its recommendations. I have also reviewed the state's sentencing memorandum. And I also note that there were aggravating circumstances that were already proved by the jury on April 27, 2015, and that your prior felony convictions were also proved up by the state on the earlier occasion. I believe that was June 5th, 2015. So I will consider all of that in terms of the sentencing. So you may sit down now. Thank you. Ms. Gallagher?
Your Honor, Lisa Vance would ask to address the court.
Okay.
And her name?
What's Anthony's last name?
Okay.
She's the one that's here.
Yeah.
Could you please state your name?
My name is Taquacion Akins.
Go ahead.
We wrote a poem for Jessie. She cries and wonders why. Why does she have to miss school because of her blackened eyes? Why is mommy so mad? Why no matter how good she is, mommy always thinks she's bad? Why can't she ever hear praise no matter what she does? Why has she never felt her own mother's love? Why is the abuse so real? Why won't these scars heal? Why hasn't her face ever felt a gentle kiss? And why can't mommy use her words instead of her fists? Why can't she be as free as a butterfly? And why can't she have one day where she doesn't have to constantly cry or constantly ask why? On bent knees she prays, having faith that soon God will send protection her way. We have a chance to protect a child who sheds silent tears yet displays visible fears. When they become children with no choice, stand tall and open your heart and be that child's voice. Don't ever be afraid, or please don't wait, because for so many children it becomes too late.
Thank you. Did you also want to say something?
No, I just want to be here.
Thank you. Say your name first, ma'am.
Ida Vance. I would like to start off by saying we love and we miss you, Jessie, and we wish you were here with us all. I'm sorry that you will never have the chance to grow up with your cousins and have the opportunity to experience life to the fullest. No birthdays to celebrate, no graduations to attend, no marriage, nor children to bear. I can honestly stand here today and say you were truly robbed at a young age of your life, and for that I am sorry from the bottom of my heart. And if I would have known what I know now to be the truth today, I would have done everything in my power to prevent your death. You didn't deserve to leave this earth in this manner. In the way that you did. Just know, while you were here on earth with us, you were very much loved by me, Victor, Jaslyn, Whitney, Nikita, Mahogany, Mia, Peanut, Amaya, Jaden, Chunky, Lanaya, Jaleel, Jameer, and Kamori. But the most love of all, and still is today, is Auntie Tycora. She loved you more than life itself. You were truly a blessing to our family. You would truly be missed. We love you, Jesse. We love you. And this is to this baby killer that's sitting behind me. Jerice Hunter, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you sit there, stone-faced it, and with no emotion, none, no emotion. Your baby is dead, and you don't got no emotion. From the day it happened until today, no emotion. But you loved your baby. You loved her. Yeah, right. Like I said, you sit there stone-faced it and with no emotion, like you didn't do anything to baby Jessie. Baby Jessie. She was a baby. And just to let you know, I know that you've done this to her, and you know that you've done this to her. And you managed to pull the wool over all our eyes until you completed your task of killing baby Jessie. And to top it off, you thought you were actually going to get away with it. Ha! Guess what? The last laugh is on you. I hope you burn in hell for what you've done to baby Jessie and for the abuse and trauma that your other children have had to suffer and endure because of the bad choices that you chose to make in your life. I'm glad baby Jessie is up in heaven and she don't have to suffer and endure any more pain from you. And the funny thing is that I begged you to allow us to keep baby Jessie to stay with us until you got your life in order. My sister Tycora offered you to live at her house, until you got up on your feet, and at the same time build a relationship with your baby, because you went to prison for 4.5 years of her life. But this is the road that you chose to take instead of a mother and daughter bond relationship. And it's not like you didn't have choices, because you did. You just chose the wrong choice, and for that, you will pay this time for everything. Everything, Jerice. Everything, Reese. Everything. And you are no longer considered a part of my family, nor my cousin. I loved you. I loved you, girl. I loved you like my little sister. I took care of you like you was one of my children and your children before Jessie came along, and you know this. So how dare you? And like I said, I don't consider you a part of my family nor my cousin, and you will forever be known as a baby killer. You understand that word? A baby killer. And you are going to get what's coming to you. To you, the baby killer. Deuces.
Did you want to make a statement, sir? Could you state your name first?
Vincent Scott.
Go ahead.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to the prosecution. Just want to reflect on how this horrific event has separated our family.
You shouldn't have done this.
As you can see, ain't a day go by that we don't think about Jessie and every one of us. She was well loved. I'm going to miss her. I'm going to miss her saying, Uncle, Uncle. Like I say, once again, it really hurts when a family is torn apart. When you love your brothers, but you haven't spoken to them. When you love your nieces, but you haven't talked to them. You haven't picked up the phone, dialed their number. It really hurts to see a family broken apart. We've been through a lot. We're just barely mending relationships, with our family. I just love my nieces so much. I just wanted to be here so they could have somebody to lean on as well. Because I sure needed them. Even though those years we were apart, I really needed them. It took me a while to, figure out. How much I loved them. And it's really sad that we had to go through this whole process. Hopefully from here on out, we'll see brighter days, and whatever has divided us will bring us together. Once again, just want to say I love my nieces, my nephews, my family. Taking it out, just to get up here and say what I had to say. To see Lisa saying what she had to say. She said a lot of things that I would have probably wanted to say and didn't. But I just want to let you know how, this family is. And we are here for Jessie. And just want to say thank you for the excellent job that was done here. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Your Honor, Detective Geisler.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, it has been 3.5 years since the disappearance of 5-year-old Jessie Shockley. I'll always remember the day that she was reported missing and the investigation into her death, as it still haunts me to think about the pain and torture that she endured alone in the closet of her mother's bedroom. The actions as described by Jessie's sister, 13-year-old sister, Janine Hunter, of her mother, Jerice, beating and locking poor Jessie in the closet, have completely impacted and changed my life. I cannot even begin to describe the feelings I have for her disappearance and the feelings I have for not finding her little body in the Butterfield landfill. As a homicide detective, I have spent several years investigating these types of crimes. Homicide of any child is the hardest emotional crime to investigate. The pain and suffering that I observed in Jessie's family, friends, and even the community was difficult, to say the least, at times unbearable. I had hoped Jessie would be found to comfort the family and give her the proper burial she deserves. Hundreds of investigators and civilians were used to search for Jessie's, both in the neighborhood where she lived and in the Butterfield landfill. At the end of the landfill search, family members who raised Jessie came to say goodbye to her. During this time, a poem written by Peggy Grant was shared with me, which I'd like to read now. Please look into my eyes. Do you hear my laughter? I am beautiful, an innocent child now playing with the angels high above the clouds. I know who hurt me. She took my life away, and now I am silent, the words I cannot say. To live and to grow are no longer my choice, but you can give me justice if you just be my voice. Your Honor, Jerice Hunter has a history and conviction of violent child abuse against her, where she spent 4 years of her life for beating her children. This incarceration, though short for her crime, did not rehabilitate her. Your Honor, now is the time that the criminal justice system does what it is intended to do, keep the criminals locked up and the community safe. I could not bear the fact of this happening to another child should Jerice Hunter ever be released again. I realize that you have the final say on the sentence of Jerice Hunter. Considering the violent nature of this crime and the simple fact that Jerice Hunter hasn't learned from prior conviction, I ask that you sentence Jerice Hunter to the maximum sentence of life without parole. Thank you.
Your Honor, the state has no further.
Right, say that again.
I said the state has no further people who are going to be addressing the court.
Would you like to make a recommendation at this point, other than what your says?
If the defense isn't going to have anybody speak, then I'll make my recommendation now. But if they are, I'd rather do it after.
Okay. Do you have anybody who will be speaking?
We do, Your Honor.
Okay.
Tammy Hunter, Your Honor.
Okay.
Okay. My name is Tammy Hunter, and I'm Jerice auntie. And I just want to say, it's been hard because it's not just one family, it's two families that's been torn apart. And Jerice is a good person. I don't know what happened, but I know she is a good person, you know, and she can care about people, you know, and I love her. You know, I can't just stop loving her because of what done happened or what didn't happen. But, you know, I just hope you just try to take into consideration her past life and everything else, and, you know, maybe just not prison time, maybe counseling or some kind of doctor help or something, you know, to help with that. I don't know, but, you know, I don't know. I'm just sad because it came to this, and it's just, I don't know. I wanted to say that, okay? Sorry.
Your Honor, her father, Jesse Johnson.
Okay.
Ma'am, my name is Jesse Johnson, and I'm here on behalf of my daughter, Jerice. And all I like to say is that I know Jerice is a good person, and I know she's not capable of doing something like this, because I just know Jerice because I try to help her in every way I possibly can. And all these people who speaks against her, they never, not one of them, never ever called me. And every one of these people has my number. If they knew something was going wrong, they should have called me. I could have corrected. It's a lot of the stuff that these people are saying is just vindictive, you know. I don't understand it. You know, they never tried to help, come around and try to get the kids or take them anywhere, or come by and see if the lady needed anything. None of these people done any of this stuff. And each and every one of these people knew my address and my phone number, but nobody ever calls me and say, Jesse, something is wrong. Nobody. And these people know my number. And I have helped these people many, many times. They know my number. All they had to do is call me. And I would have been there to do something. I wouldn't just sit back, because my family are not out to hurt anybody. My family is not to hurt people. My family is to love people and take care of kids and stuff like that. We're not here to hurt kids. You know, my family has not ever been in a situation like this where somebody been on trial for hurting a kid. you know. So, you know, like I say, these people, all these people that said all this stuff, they have never called me, and they know my address. And that's all I have to say, ma'am. That I love Jerice, and she's a good person. And I just can't believe that she done anything like this, personally. So thank you, and have a good day.
Anybody else?
There you are. Thank you.
There's somebody walking up. Please say your name first, sir.
I'm Johnny Johnson,
Okay.
Jerice's uncle. And I've been knowing Jerice, you know, ever since she was, I watched her being born, ever since she was a small baby and stuff like that. And before all this, they gave her that time for the 4 years. Jerice never had got in trouble, anything like that. You know, and I love my family and all this stuff and just tore my family apart, you know. But I'm not going to go around with all this hatred all up in me, you know, because of all this. I'm just going to keep on loving Jerice. I'm going to keep on loving my family. And I just want to do what Jesus would do if he was in this situation. And I know that he wouldn't go around hating a person for this or hating a person for that. He would try to show his love. And that's what I want to do. Like I say, I want to keep on loving Jerice. She's a good person. She's not that monster that y'all pictured her to be. We all make mistakes in our lives, you know. Some big, some small. But that don't give anyone the reason to condemn a person for a mistake that he made, you know. And I think that, you know, and I just want to say, I forgive you, whether you did it or not. I love you.
I didn't do it, Uncle Johnny. I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
Say only God knows, you know, what happened, you know.
It's a lie.
I don't think the courts really know what happened in this situation.
They're lying.
Okay.
And I just want to say, you know, again, that I just want to do what Jesus would want me to do. I just want to just keep on loving my family, whether they don't love me or not, you know. And I just want to just, you know, try to look, you know, in a positive way.
On your behalf, let me hear what he has to say. And if you could just try to control yourself. All right, go ahead.
Like I was saying, you know, we all make mistakes, you know. Teresa, you know, she's not a bad person, you know. Before all this happened, you know, she never been to jail, or she never been to juvenile. You know, she was a nice person. I've been knowing her all my life, you know. Just like I've been knowing some of these people, you know, since they were babies, you know. Just like I said, we all make mistakes, you know. And I don't think a person should be condemned, you know, for a mistake, you know. I mean, it's all right for the justice to you know, to make a certain ruling on the person, you know. But, you know, we don't know, you know, what's in that lady's heart, you know. So I just want to say, you know, I think the court should be a little bit lenient, you know, with this life without the road thing, you know. Because she can be rehabilitated, you know. So I just want to say, you know, this is really tore the family apart, you know. There's a lot of hate in my family, and I don't think it's right. I just want to keep on loving and loving and loving, you know, and do all the things that Jesus wanted me to do. That's all I have to say.
Family has asked that I speak to Dad.
It is up to Ms. Hunter and her attorneys.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Mr. Baker.
Say your name for the record.
My name is Kim Baker.
Okay, go ahead.
I feel this family's pain today. And I regret that any of us are in the positions that we're in today because it's tough. However, I am here to give my support to Jerice Hunter and Jesse and to the family if they so desire. I am, first of all, whether you entertain it or not, I'm here to object to sentencing today. And I brought a document for you and for the state. You, Judge, called out a couple of dates in lieu of Ms. Hunter and the time frame that this supposedly took place. I feel somewhat responsible in that October 4th, 2011, I was arrested in Tempe for a crime that is still pending now at the Arizona Court of Appeals. We're waiting on a decision there. I was arrested October 4th, 2011, the same date that it is allegedly reported that Ms. Hunter took the missing person of Jesse Shockley to Tempe and put her body in a dumpster. Detective Geiser called me in October about 2013. Where he got my phone number from, I don't know. Asked me to meet him down at the Glendale police station, in which I did. He and another, I believe his supervisor, were there. About a 45-minute to an hour conversation took place in which I shared how their police department had been duped by the Tempe Police Department. Maybe you all know or you don't know, but little Jesse was never in that landfill, and they knew this going out there. But in an attempt to find evidence against me, they used the missing person of Jesse Shockley to get into this landfill, looking for, quote, money bags that were allegedly stolen out of Tempe High School. There's a bigger crime here today. Surely the documents. Amanda Martin was previously assigned to this case by the court from the public defender's office. I believe Ms. Hunter still don't know why she was withdrawn as her counsel. I'm here to make it plain today. This is why I object to the sentencing today. Her due process rights have been violated to the 10th power. Ms. Martin filed this motion, I believe, February 28, 2013, asking that she be released from Ms. Hunter counsel because we had had a meeting. Ms. Martin and I had had a meeting in which I disclosed how her client's case left Glendale and ended up in Tempe to the Butterfield landfill. Detective Geiser and I have met on this same issue. What baffled me in our meeting in October was, at the conclusion of the meeting or thereabout, he asked me, Mr. Baker, then where is Jesse? And I stopped, because why would you ask me that if you truly believe she was in that landfill 2 years into your investigation? Why would you make us do?
Mr. Baker, if I could just say this, you're not meaning to cut you off in any way. However, the jury has made a jury verdict finding
I understand.
that Ms. Hunter is guilty.
Which brings me to my point, Judge.
And so what I'm saying here is what you're saying now is not helpful to my decision.
Okay, and it's fine.
If you have a recommendation for me as to why I should be more lenient on Ms. Hunter, I'd like to hear that.
Okay. My recommendation is I was named as a witness by the Public Defender's Office with pertinent and substantial information relative to Ms. Hunter's case. Okay? If I met with Ms. Shoemaker, shared the same information with her, if I had been called as a witness, I could have cleared up some of the confusion in this case. Okay? The jury, and we lean on this justice system to do the right thing, providing we gave all the information that's needed to make a solid decision. At this stage, I feel it's very premature. The jury has made a decision. However, I was not put on the witness stand. I hold exculpatory information that could have vindicated her and actually shed light on this whole story. Ms. Shoemaker knew about it. This motion was given to Ms. Gallagher. Her name is affixed to it. She knew about it. You even ordered at one point that I contact both parties and Detective Geiser, which I tried. No one would respond to me. The process was not fair, Judge. If a witness is still willing to testify, that's why I would ask for a dismissal and a new trial order. My objection still stands, whether you acknowledge it or not. All of the evidence as it relates to Ms. Hunter and her defense was left out by the state as well as Ms. Shoemaker. I'm still available for testimony. Your name is affixed to this sentencing going forward. I saw where the other lady sat in your court and you dismissed charges against her. So I know you hold the power. I would ask you to listen to your heart, Judge. Listen to your heart. I heard those tears. This lady has not done what she's been convicted of. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Gallagher, would you like to make your statement now?
Your Honor, once again, Mr. Baker has tried to inject himself into this, claiming he has exculpatory information which he has never revealed to anyone. He writes things and says, I have this information, and then he doesn't reveal it. So he can stand up here for his 5 minutes of fame and claim that he knows these things, but yet he didn't just now tell you anything because he doesn't know anything. And in the beginning of this case, when Ms. Shoemaker got on, she said to the court, and as an officer of the court, I'm sure she was being truthful, that Mr. Baker didn't even know Jerice Hunter. So clearly anything he has to say as to what should happen to her is irrelevant. Mr. Baker says the jury should have been given all the information. Well, he doesn't have any. And the reason the state included in my sentencing memorandum the facts about the defendant's prior conviction for child abuse is because the jury didn't have that information either. But it is clearly relevant to the sentencing. The jury listened to the current evidence. They were not in any way influenced by the fact that the defendant's child abuse is long-standing. And it wasn't just abuse of Tammy Jernine. It was abuse of 4 of her then 5 children. The only one who has not been abused by Jerice Hunter is Jatea. Because at the time of the incidences in California, Jatea was only 8 months old. And so the defendant didn't do anything to her. But the state included in the sentencing memorandum photographs of the injuries inflicted on those children, down to Javanae, who was only 3 years old, that the defendant inflicted on her kids. Tammy Jernine, you saw her testify, and it's clear how this has affected her. But when she was 7 years old, those pictures of the injuries to her genitals, that was Tammy Jernine when she was 7. And that's what the defendant did to her. I also included the defendant's statement to the police at that time, where she acknowledged that she injured all of her children, claimed she didn't know any better, and that she would never do it again. Her then 14-year-old son, as the police reports indicate, told them that she had been abusing him for years. And in one of the counts in the indictment to which the defendant was convicted had to do with her, he would now be 22 years old, son, because she punched him in the face. She doesn't confine her abuse, obviously, to using an extension cord. Back when this happened in 2005 and 2006, the defendant finally admitted it, that she had inflicted these injuries on her kids. And there are, you can see from the pictures, Judge, there are scars on them. This is how she treats her children. But of course, the jury didn't know any of those things when they convicted her. She said, yes, I chased Tammy Jernine around the room naked, hitting her with the extension cord because she had stolen something at school. And she wouldn't stand still and allow me to continue. So I got my husband, George Shockley, oh yes, the convicted child molester who was a registered sex offender that she takes into her house and marries. She had him hold her down while she hit her with the extension cord. So her family can say all they want, she's a good person, but the facts show otherwise, which is why the state wanted the court to have that information when you decide what should happen to her. She had a psychological evaluation in the prior California case, and all, according to the pre-sentence report, all that psychological showed was that she had situational stress disorder, period. So there was nothing mitigating back then. She also knew, at the time that this was going on, she was pregnant with Jesse. And in the pre-sentence report, it clearly states that Child Protective Services in California had every intention of taking Jesse away from her as soon as she was born. So what did the defendant do? She came to Arizona and had Jesse, so the Child Protective Services would not be involved. And luckily for Jesse, it was Tycora, Lisa, and Mahogany who took her and cared for her and gave her the only joy that child ever had. Because then, when the defendant gets out of prison, she comes back and takes Jesse away from the only family she ever knew. Mr. Johnson says, well, I was right there, you could have called me. Well, you know from the testimony during the trial that the defendant kept Jesse away from the people who loved her, so that those people wouldn't see the abuse. That is exactly the situation that got the defendant into prison in the first place, is because she let her mother and the children's two aunts see the children in California. And when they saw the whip marks and the scars on the children, they're the ones who called the police. So of course, when the defendant comes here, she is going to isolate Jesse and Tammy Jernine because she doesn't want to go back to prison. It's her family that landed her in prison in the first place. She also does not have any place for Jesse to go, so she goes to she goes to domestic violence shelters and claims she's abused. Of course, there's no man in her life. Shockley's in prison in California, but she's going to do and say whatever she wants to take advantage of the system. So little Jesse, who's always lived in a home, is now suddenly living in domestic violence shelters. It wasn't until her family stepped forward and gave her money so she could get an apartment does she get the apartment in Glendale where the murder ultimately occurs.
Okay. If I have to hear interruptions, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Go ahead.
Thank you. So she continues with the same pattern she had in California. You saw from the police reports that the state submitted that in California, when she was going to discipline one of her children, she would take them in the bedroom and do it not in front of the other children and keep them separate. She continued to do that here in Arizona with Jesse. So Jesse didn't have a chance because she was now isolated in an apartment with the defendant. One of her relatives asked for leniency, and perhaps had the California judge not been so lenient, this never would have happened. Jesse would have been older. But there was leniency shown to her, even though she was convicted of not just abusing Tammy Jernine, but abusing her other 3 children. Even though in California they call it corporal punishment of a child, it is the equivalent to intentional or knowing child abuse in Arizona. And at that time, the probation officer noted that in reviewing the seriousness of the offense, as well as the likelihood of the defendant being successful in changing her behavior, it appears that a state prison recommendation is the most appropriate. The defendant's actions were egregious, and the likelihood of her making changes necessary to be a stable parent are slim. We're here because there were none. She continuously made choices that put her children at risk. The amount of damage done to these children is immeasurable. And now it is 1,000 times worse, because now she has taken the final step and killed their sister. She had the opportunity to make changes. She talks about going to parenting classes in California. She talks about being in programs in prison, and yet she comes out, returns here, and does the exact same thing. The state also included in the sentencing memorandum the part of her interview with Detective Lesky on the night where she claims Jesse went missing, where she talks to him about the California case. And of course, she minimizes it to the point that you would think the court should have apologized to her for sending her to prison. She claimed that 7-year-old Tammy Jernine, that she just whooped her because Tammy Jernine was burglarizing people's homes at 7. And stealing large amounts of money and jewelry, and she didn't want little Tammy Jernine to go down the wrong path and end up in prison, and so that's why she whooped her. The jury didn't hear that, of course, because we took all of that out. But she has always been blaming Tammy for what happens to her. She blamed Tammy for the fact that she went to prison, as opposed to taking responsibility for it. And then when Tammy has to come into this courtroom and finally tell what she knows, the blame is still on Tammy Jernine. Tammy is making it up, and so on and so on. And of course, the jury didn't know why Tammy is so damaged, but the court knows. She is so damaged because of living with the defendant, who her family claims is a good person. The state is asking that you sentence the defendant to natural life in prison so that she never, ever has an opportunity to do this to anyone else, and because it is the appropriate punishment for what she did to Jesse. Additionally, the court has to sentence the defendant on the child abuse charge. The state is asking that you give her the maximum sentence of 24 years. There is nothing mitigating here. She wasn't a 21-year-old new mom who didn't know better. She was an ex-con who knew perfectly well how illegal and criminal her behavior was, whether she recognized the harm she was doing to her child or not. The jury found 4 aggravating factors: the cruel, especially cruel, heinous, or depraved nature of the offense, the fact that it was a domestic violence offense committed in the presence of children, the fact that Jesse was under 12 years old and the defendant was clearly over 18, and the fact that she perpetrated a fraud on the community by, after disposing of Jesse like so much garbage, She then reports her missing and gets the whole state involved in trying to find this little girl, all the while knowing that she has successfully disposed of her body. She should be shown no leniency at all. The state is asking for the aggravated sentence of 24 years, and pursuant to law, it must be consecutive to whatever sentence the court gives on the murder. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Shoemaker, Ms. Hunter, if you could approach the podium. Ms. Shoemaker, would you like to speak first or have your client speak first?
I will, Your Honor. Thank you. It's pretty apparent, Judge, that there is, frankly, one tremendous common theme for all of the family members in this courtroom on both sides of the aisle, and that is that every family member here and that has been here and participating in this case very, very much misses Jesse. I don't think that can be denied, that any of those family members are feeling the pain and the passion behind how much they miss 5-year-old Jesse. They have very different opinions of what has happened to her, but they do have a common thread among them. And maybe Uncle Johnny says it best when he's moving forward loving everyone, because they're all feeling that shared pain, and that to him is a way through the pain, is to love all of the family members, if they can find that in their hearts to do it. But I don't think that can be denied, that everyone that's here, those sitting on the side of the state and those that have been here supporting Jerice, simply have those shared feelings. Judge Jerice is here today. She's 41 years old at this point, and she has been through an extraordinary couple of years. You've heard from her father, Jesse, today. Her mother, Shirley, has been in court previously. I know the court's aware of that. She is living in California, was unable to make it today due to some medical issues that she's having. Jerice was born the oldest of 3 girls that Shirley and Jesse had. And Jesse, unfortunately, was only in the house for the first couple years of Jerice's life. But we know from talking to different family members, aunts and uncles, that it was a very tumultuous atmosphere that Jerice grew up in. She unfortunately learned to parent the way she was raised inside of her home. And that was often in physical ways. And as she grew up, I think it's safe to say that the respites that she found from what was happening in her home in California were here in Arizona, when she was able to come for summers and to visit with her grandmother and her family members. And as you heard from testimony, they were actually close, the cousins, when they grew up and got to spend time together. Lisa still calls her Reese, the nickname that the kids had for Jerice. It was a close family, and I think those were the breaks that Jerice had from an otherwise difficult upbringing. There's no doubt that as she was raised, she was learning, frankly, at her mom's hand, of how to parent. Not in appropriate ways, but it's the way that she was taught. Jerice finally began to have her own children and did display behaviors in raising her children the only way that she knew. And often those ways were physical as well. She had charges in California that the court's aware of, and those resulted in the ways that she thought she was raising and disciplining her children. She was pregnant with Jesse and came to Arizona, had Jesse, and made accommodations for Jesse, made arrangements for Jesse, and wanted to be responsible for what she was going to do with the rest of her life. She could have stayed here, tried to run, tried to not be responsible, but she didn't. She left Jesse with family here and returned to California so that she could take responsibility for the charges that she had pending. Judge, she did do time in prison, as you're aware, and I think prison really gave her an opportunity to evaluate how she was not just raising her kids, but living her life. At that point, she had opportunities in prison. She got to learn and grow and do classes and have mental health evaluations and address diagnoses, and got to make a determination that she would come out and reunite her family and do better. And when she came out in 2010, her goal was focused on reuniting her family. She never lost sight of Jesse. She never lost sight of the love that she had for her kids. She acknowledged the mistakes she made. She felt like she was being responsible for them, and she was prepared to move forward when she got out of custody. And she came to Arizona, and as you know, she came with Tammy to try and reunite her family. She was so determined to focus on bringing her girls back together as one family unit that when things weren't working with Lisa and Mahogany and Tycora, she moved with Tammy and Jesse into a shelter. It was certainly not an easy decision for her. She had a home she could stay in and try and raise her family. But things weren't working, and she wanted to get her other girls with her as well. And she made the decision that for 6 months or so, they lived in a shelter just so she could keep her family together. With the help of her father, Jesse, they did get money together. She got her own apartment in the following spring. And at that point, her mom made arrangements to have Jatea and Jeviane come out. And the 4 girls were finally reunited. The state goes through a lot of time in their comments talking about what Jerice did in California. And Jerice acknowledges that. She's never shied away from it. She accepted responsibility and she served her time for it. But you can hear, as much as the state dedicates their time to talking about what happened, that those shadows have not left her in terms of being judged in this case. Judge, when the state talks about Jerice shielding Jesse and not letting the cousins see her and keeping her away, from the testimony, you know that's not accurate. Lisa Vance told you that she saw Jesse and Jerice on at least 10 occasions that Jerice had her, by giving them rides, by spending time with them. And she kind of did it on the sly, so the other cousins, Mahogany and Tycora, didn't really know about it. But she got to see Jesse repeatedly with Jerice. Through all of those encounters, she didn't have one negative impression at that point of how Jesse was being raised during the time that she was in the shelter or the time that she started to live in the apartment with the rest of her sisters. You know as well that once Jerice got that apartment, she started to embrace the responsibilities of being a parent, in so much as she was getting doctor's appointments made. The older girls had attended their doctor's appointments. She was getting all of the girls into school. She was getting them regular attendance up through September of that year. She was getting them dressed in their uniforms regularly, and she was embracing those responsibilities and duties that she had as a parent and as a mom. So as much as the state says, look at what she did back in 2005 and in California, and Jerice says, but I learned from that, and I changed what happened and how I parented. What I asked the court to take a look at is the state has no indication that when Jerice came back from California and began to rebuild her family unit from August of 2010 through the entire next year, there's really no indication that she didn't embrace a new way of raising her family and taking care of them. And I think the best indication for this court was from Jesse's teacher, Deborah Hine, and she was an independent witness that the court got to hear from. And what she told this court was that in her time, a month and a half or so of interacting with Jesse, this little girl never showed any signs of abuse. And this was a woman with over 20 years of teaching experience who's been trained in what to look for in abuse and has had circumstances where she had to identify it previously. And when I talk about not seeing signs of abuse, I don't just mean physically. She saw nothing at all that concerned her physically with Jesse. But she also described Jesse as being a happy and bubbly and smart little girl who was a leader in the classroom, gave no signs, not just physically, but also emotionally and intellectually, that she was being anything other than loved and embraced at home, gave no signs of abuse. So I asked the court to take a look at the fact that as much as the state wants to look back at California, the year that Jerice was raising Jesse, there's no evidence that any abuse was long-term. The state truly to this day does not know exactly what happened with Jesse. There's an indication that there was some type of abuse, as testified by Tammy, but the exact circumstances of Jesse's death to this moment are unknown by the state. To the extent that they believe that she is dead at this point, they don't know why. And Jerice continues to believe that Jesse is needing to be found at this point. I ask the court to consider that to the extent you are sentencing at this point based on a verdict, that anything the state believes happened in a very brief time span. It was not long-term, and it was not lengthy in the year or so that Jerice was raising Jesse with her sisters. I ask the court to consider the possibility of release in this case. I think throughout the trial you've been able to see a lengthy trial that Jerice has constantly had family members in support, and sometimes it's been difficult for them to contain their emotions. Lisa today was expressing some of that difficulty in containing emotions, and I think throughout the course of the trial, other family members have also had that difficulty, but they've been here to support Jerice for the woman that they know that she is. It's clear from Tammy's testimony in court as well that she still loves her mom, regardless of what they've been through as a family, and that is unlikely to change. They haven't seen or spoken to one another in over 3 years, and that love is still there. For those reasons, I ask the court to consider the possibility of release in this case. I think the opportunity for release will give the family, and certainly her daughters, opportunities to heal and hopefully move forward in healthier manners than the last several years that they've been going through. My comments today, Judge, are simply that I ask you to take a look at the support that she's had, the manner in which Jesse was raised in the year that Jerice was able to be with her, and consider that the possibility of release could benefit all of the family members in this case. Whatever the sentence the court gives today, it's going to be a tremendously lengthy sentence, and Jerice has no doubts or false impressions about that. But I think simply the idea of a possibility of release could provide hope, certainly to the daughters, that are going to continue loving her no matter what sentence this court gives out. Jerice does have some comments, Your Honor. I do ask the court to take into consideration that she will be moving forward with an appeal, and so her comments are not addressing any underlying facts of this case, obviously, but just in general, her feelings and her family.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Honorable Judge Moraes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you, as I know that you are a very busy woman. I know I've been made out to be a horrible person and a monster of a mother, human being, and a member of society. I've been made out to be all these things. A terrible member of society, a horrible mother. I've even had to sit there and be called a baby killer today, which I most definitely am not, and I don't own that. But that is not who I am. I made a terrible mistake years ago in California. I've paid for that. I've grown and learned from that experience. I truly have. That is not who I am anymore. That is not the woman who stands before you today, Judge Morris. I think of my children constantly, especially my baby Jessie. I worry about where she is and whether she's safe and sound and what somebody's doing to her or if she's all right. I worry because I am her mother. I know I've been convicted of a horrible crime as I stand here before you. A crime which I most definitely did not commit. I beseech you, Judge Moraes, to bestow a lenient sentence upon me. I feel as though I've been judged, tried, and convicted all already by the public through the media. I felt that way before I even had a trial, Judge Mraz. And I thank my family for supporting me, for supporting me through this horrific ordeal. To my children, Javion, Javani, Janine, Javiane, Chatea, Jesse, and Jerice, I love you. And I miss you. Life is not the same without you. I desperately long for you just as the deer longs for water. Each breath I take is filled with your air. Please don't ever forget that. You are the air that I breathe. I'm your mom. Nothing will ever change that. And until my last breath, I will fight for my children and for the return of Jesse, whether I'm behind bars or not. Again, I ask you for a lenient sentence, Judge Mraz, if you can find it in your heart, to look at the woman who stands before you today not as a monster, not as some horrible member of society, a person who abuses her children. I don't abuse my children. I made a bad mistake in California, but I did not make that mistake here. I wasn't abusing my children, Judge Mraz. With every ounce of my being, until I restore my family, I will work to get them back home with me where they belong, to restore my entire family. Although some people can stand up before you and say they don't consider me a member of their family anymore, well, I don't feel the same. I still love you, even if you hate me. I didn't do anything to Jesse. The state can't prove that I did anything to Jesse. However, I've been convicted of hurting her. And that's a horrible injustice. But I must follow the rules of this state. And if you sentence me to life, I pray that you will give me a chance to get out, to be with my children one day. I ask for a sentence that is not life, Judge Mraz, because I don't deserve that. Thank you for hearing me out, Judge.
Okay. All right. I have considered the facts and circumstances of your life as well as the life of how Jessie lived and how she died. I considered the fact that she was a helpless 5-year-old who really needed your protection. And instead, she died under your care. I understand that you say that you did not kill her, but the jury has decided otherwise. And I have sat through the entire trial, and I have to agree with the jury. There certainly was substantial evidence to show that you did kill her and that you did dump her like just yesterday's trash. And I can't forget that. Although your attorney says that during this one short period of your life, 1 year, you didn't do anything and you have learned from your lesson, testimony shows otherwise. I remember a portion of the testimony from your neighbor who said that Jernine went to her and then you went to her and tried to blame things on Jernine. And I remember the testimony from Ms. Vance about the picnic in which she said she showed that there was some type of injury on Jesse. So that rings hollow to me. I've also considered the fact that you have done this before. Not that you should be judged forever for what you've done before, because you did pay your debt to society for those. But I also have to consider the fact that you are a repeat offender on the same type of charge. And I have to consider protecting any future children. I've also considered your life circumstances, and I don't doubt Ms. Shoemaker when she says that you've had a horrible beginning of your life and that you maybe learned your parenting from somebody else and that you did not have an easy life, that you yourself was probably abused as a child. And I have also noted that you do have the support of at least a portion of your family. Considering all of that, I do believe a natural life sentence is appropriate in this case. And so as to count 2, it is the judgment and sentence of the court that you be sentenced to the Department of Corrections for the rest of your natural life. As to count 1, I have considered the following aggravating circumstances. And those are the aggravating circumstances that the jury found. And those are: you committed the offense in an especially heinous, cruel, or depraved manner, that the offense was a domestic violence offense committed in the presence of children, that you were an adult at the time of the crime and the victim was a child under the age of 12, and that you perpetrated a fraud on the community by reporting the victim as a missing child. I note especially that they spent hours and hours, days, weeks, months looking for Jessie. So it also rings hollow to me that nobody was out there looking for her. There were people looking for her. They spent a lot of time looking for her. And as for the mitigating circumstances, I note again that you do have the support of at least a part of your family, the fact that you did not have an easy upbringing, and that you were most likely abused as a child yourself. Balancing the aggravating circumstances against the mitigating circumstances, I do find that the aggravating circumstances are sufficiently substantial to warrant a greater than presumptive sentence as allowed under the law. And it is a judgment of the court that you be sentenced to the greater than presumptive sentence of 20 years, and giving you credit for the 1,044 days of pre-sentence incarceration that you have already served. This sentence is a flat time sentence as required under the law, and it is consecutive to count 2 as required under the law. And I should say, I have also considered the fact that I've already imposed a natural life sentence upon you in deciding not to give you the absolute maximum as recommended by the state. It's further ordered that you shall serve a term of community supervision equal to 1 day for every 7 days of the sentence. And if you violate the terms of the community supervision, you can be required to spend the rest of that time in prison as well. It's further ordered that you shall submit to DNA testing for law enforcement identification purposes. And it's further ordered retaining jurisdiction over the restitution issue in case anybody wants to request restitution from the victim's side. If there is restitution requested, do you want to be brought back to Maricopa County, or do you just want Ms. Shoemaker to handle it for you?
I'd like Ms. Shoemaker to represent me.
She'll waive her presence, Your Honor.
Waive your presence. We will note that you waive your presence for any restitution hearing set. It's order imposing a probation assessment fee of $20 and a family offense assessment fee of $50 and a domestic violence shelter fund fee of $50. You have the right to appeal from the orders of this court and to have a lawyer represent you. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you. If you cannot afford the necessary records and transcripts of these proceedings, they will also be provided to you at no cost. If you want to file a notice of appeal, you must do so within 20 days from today. Otherwise, you will waive those rights. You will need to sign for a copy of these review rights and provide the court with a fingerprint. You are remanded to the custody of the Department of Corrections effective today to begin your sentence. Anything else?
2 issues, Judge. Just for the record, no legal cause to the court imposing sentence today. And I had 152 days. If the clerk could calculate the days just for the minute entry.
Certainly. Let me just make sure that we have the same dates.
1,052.
Okay, so I have from September 6, 2012 to today, which is July 17, 2015. Okay. And also just to verify with you, she had an additional 8 days from the first time that she was arrested. So that was from November 21st, 2011 to November 28th, 2011. Is that what you're using?
Yes.
Okay, perhaps your difference and my difference is because I didn't add the eight days. Let me just look. 1,052 days? I think that's what it is. We will verify that, If that is in fact the case, then I will be giving you credit for the 1,052 days that you have already served. Anything else?
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Anything from the state?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Is it 1,000? Let's verify that. Okay. If it's already filed, then it's already filed.
Yeah, I think I saw it on docket, but it's just an example. I don't think so. I just want to get her name, the spelling of your name. Who spoke? Who's the first person that spoke?